This is the video for the review sheet for Unit 8. And just to remind you what Unit 8 encompasses or encompassed, Unit 8 Lesson 1 was adding and subtracting polynomials. Unit 8 Lesson 2 was multiplying polynomials. Unit 8 Lesson 3 was factoring. Unit 8 Lesson 4 was factoring polynomials completely. Unit 8, Lesson 5, factoring polynomials by grouping. So, number 1 in this review sheet is saying if C equals 2a squared minus 5 and D equals 3 minus a, then C minus 2D equals, and you just have to substitute in, for this C right here, you substitute this whole thing. And I would put parentheses around everything that you do substitute, and then for D you put this, and then put parentheses around that. Go ahead, see if you could try to simplify that after you substitute. You can press pause now. So I did substitute in, and this is basically where I am. So I am just going to put down 2a squared, bring down the minus 5, and then distribute that negative 2. You see how I put parentheses around when I substituted in the D as 3 minus a. For multiplication, that's very, very important. So negative 2 times a positive 3 is a negative 6. And then negative 2 times negative a is a positive 2a. You would have to put these in standard form. All right, standard form is the greatest exponent first. So you're looking for 2a squared. You're looking for another squared to combine like terms. You don't have it, so I am going to get rid of that. Now the next highest exponent is the exponent of 1, so I'm going to put that 2a first. And I guess I could cancel that, but I see negative 5 and negative 6. Negative 5 minus 6 is negative 11. That is standard form, and 3 is your answer. Hopefully you got that. When x squared plus 4x minus 7 is subtracted from, that's the main thing here, subtracted from negative 4x squared minus 6x plus 2. The difference is, and you would have to do that. Remember, when this is being subtracted from this. So put it in parentheses, make sure you have the right thing. We'll come back. Once you have it set up, you could press play again on the video and just to see if you do have it set up correctly. Press pause and try the problem now. Okay, so you do notice that that this is being subtracted. This is being subtracted from this, right? When x squared plus 4x minus 7 is subtracted from this, that means negative 4x squared minus 6x plus 2 would have to go first. Remember, put them in parentheses. Now what you have to basically do is take them out of parentheses. For the first polynomial, you're just going to take it out of parentheses. The minus sign has nothing to do, doesn't change anything in the first polynomial. But after that, that's when you do have to kind of distribute. And what happens is that you're distributing this negative. And when you distribute a negative, it's like distributing a negative 1. Negative 1 times x squared is negative x squared. Negative 1 times positive 4x is negative 4x. And negative times a negative would be a positive 7. So what it does when you get used to doing it, this negative changes all of the signs inside that second set of parentheses. So instead of a positive x squared, you have a negative x squared, just for the reasons why, the reasons that I just went over. Instead of this positive 4x, you have a negative 4x. Instead of that negative 7, you have a positive 7. And it's all has to do with multiplication of a positive and a negative and a negative and a negative. All right, distributing that negative changes the signs of everything inside. So what we're going to do is we are going to combine like terms. I have a negative 4x squared and a negative 1x squared. So together, those are, that combined is negative 5x squared. And once I finish with that, I am going to cross them out because I just like doing that just to get them out of the way. Then I have a negative 6x and a negative 4x. Together, that would be negative 6 minus 4 is negative 10x. And then I would get those out of the way. The 2 plus 7, obviously, is 9. So you could see it's negative 5x squared minus 10x plus 9, and number 2 would be your answer. Go ahead, see if, remember, you have to factor out any greatest common factor first. If there is no greatest common factor, you just have to go ahead and factor of, of what you know. So go ahead, try this problem. We're going to press pause now. So there's a no number that goes into both 4 and 25, so there is no greatest common factor. No greatest common factor. So when you're looking at 4x squared and you're looking at 25, what comes to mind about those numbers? They are both perfect squares. So we're looking at the difference of squares here. So we're going to set these up, and we're basically going to ask ourselves, what is this square root? What times what equals 4x squared? 2x, right? And remember, what we're talking about here is the difference of squares. So it has to be a plus and a minus. And it does make sense because you see that negative 25, negative 25 is what times what? It's positive times a negative. So what times what equals 25? It's 5 and 5. And that is your answer right there. Difference of squares. There was no greatest common factor, so that means 3 is your answer. Hopefully you did recognize that rather quickly. And that's it. C is your answer. 3, whatever. All right, this is the same type of problem. Remember, when you substitute this a into this right here, put parentheses, and then this minus sign, and you're substituting the b, put parentheses, because you're gonna have to distribute that negative. Go ahead, give it a try. Now, press pause. Now, press pause. Like pause now. All right, so I did the substitution, and I just want to tell you that just be careful. Put it inside parentheses and then do the distributive property. So what we're going to do is distributive property first, and we are going to multiply this 2 to this 2m squared, and we will get 4m squared. The next thing that we are going to do is 2 times m, and obviously that is 2m. Then we multiply this 2 times the negative 12, and we get a negative 24. And just like that, like you could go ahead and figure this is a negative 1. And when you multiply it, and then multiply it again, and then multiply it again, to distribute this negative throughout the whole second set of parentheses, it changes the signs of everything in there. A negative times a positive would be a negative now. You'll get used to this. You won't even think of it as distributive property. Once you do get used to it, negative times a negative is positive. It changes the signs of everything inside when you have a negative in front of or outside of the parentheses that you have to distribute. And that positive 5 turns to a negative because negative times positive is negative. Once you have everything like this outside of parentheses, you did distributive property, now you could combine like terms. So you have 4m squared minus 3m squared is just m squared. I'm going to cancel those out. And now I'm going to look at 2m plus 2m. There are no other m's, so you have 4m. And everything is in standard form, you notice. Everything was written in standard form. Negative 24 minus 5. Remember, always have your calculator out. Negative 24 minus 5 is negative 29. So 4 is your answer. And that's it. Go ahead, do the same. It's the same type of problem. Go ahead, distribute. Remember, this is a negative 4 that's being distributed. So what's going to happen is that when you do that multiplication, all of the signs are going to change inside. And this is not a negative 1 now, it's a negative 4. Do the distributive property, combine like terms. We'll come back with the answer after you press pause and try it. Press pause now. Okay, so I distributed that 3. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. 3 times positive 2x is positive 6x. And 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. Then I have negative 4 times 4x squared is negative 16x squared. Negative 4 times negative 7x is positive 28x, and then negative 4 times a positive 5 is a negative 20. Now it is time to combine like terms, and you have 3x squared minus 16x squared. Just remember, when you have your calculator, just use it. You have 3 minus 16. Remember, just put it in exactly the way, and it is negative 13. So just remember, negative 13, use that calculator, x squared. Remember to put that x squared after. Right? So now I am going to cancel out the x squareds, and I'm going to look for the x's. So I have 28, positive 28 plus 6. It's okay to count on your fingers. 34x, or just use your calculator. That's easy enough though. Cancel them out. And negative 9 minus 20, if you don't know that, please use your calculator. Simple numbers like that. Negative 13x squared plus 34x minus 29. 2 is your answer. Hopefully you did get that. On to the next one. All right, go ahead and see if you can factor this. Remember, always look for greatest common factor first. So, does 16 go into 25? No. Does 8 go into 16? Yes, it does. Does 8 go into 25? No, it doesn't. Does 4 go into 16? Yes, it does. Does 4 go into 25? No, it doesn't. Does 2 go into 16? Yes, it does. Does 2 go into 25? No, it doesn't. So we're looking at square roots here, perfect squares, and the difference of squares. So what are you going to factor out? Nothing as far as the greatest common factor goes. This is going to go right to two binomials, and you can tell by your answers that it will go there. All right, so what times what equals 16? What times what equals 16? 4 times 4. I'm sure everybody knew that. And remember, it has to be a negative 25. So I'm going to put plus and then minus. So what times what equals 25? X squared, that's a positive 5x, and a negative 5x. Now you could check this out and do distributive property here, and I'm going to do FOIL just to make sure that this is correct, because I don't want to mess up here. 4 times 4 is 16, so I have that correct. The middle term should cancel out. This is negative 20x, and this right here, 5x times 4, is positive 20x, and yep, that will cancel. And then 5x times 5x would be 25x, negative 25x squared, because it's positive times a negative. And you could see, you could stop right there, that this cancels out, and 16 minus 25x squared. And that's your answer. 4x plus 5x, 4 minus 5x, multiplication, and this is the difference of squares. Always difference of squares, perfect square, that you can't factor out the greatest common factor. All right, it says what expression is not equivalent to 3x squared plus 6x. Just simply, the way I would do this is to just go one by one and see if we could work it out. If you want to go ahead and factor this, that's okay as well. But like I would, well, let's just go factor this. It does have greatest common factor. All right, so because it's good practice to factor get to get this going, and the greatest common factor, recognizing the greatest common factor is really important. Remember, this is 3x times what equals 3x squared. 3x times x equals 3x squared. And what times 3x equals 6x? That's 2. So do you see how like that really didn't do anything to help you? Um, so what I would do is simply just go step by step. Like I factored it out. There's nothing else to do here, and it doesn't match up with any of this. So just go step by step. I would start with 1 because that looks like the easiest. So you have 5x squared, and then I'm going to do distributive property. Negative 2x times x is negative 2x squared. And negative 2x times negative 3 is a positive 6x. You see how easy that was? This is now 3. If you combine like terms, you have 3x squared plus 6x. And that means this is equivalent. That means that's equal to that. So this is out. So I'm going to do this next one. This is 4x squared And that right there, 4x times 3 is plus 12x. This is a negative x. So negative times a positive, this is negative x squared. And negative times a positive would be negative 6x. So just combining like terms, 4x minus 1x squared, 4x squared minus 1x squared is 3x squared, and 12x minus 6x is 6x. This is equivalent, so they're not looking for that. So, all right, here we go with number 3. I'm going to do distributive property 3x times x. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 4 is negative 12x. And 1 times x is positive 1x. Or you could just put x. I'm just putting 1x just to make sure I'm okay with that. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. Then I'm just going to write down, since see how this is an addition sign right here, it it won't change any signs after it. So I'm just going to put down 5x and the plus 4. If it was a minus sign there, I would have to change the signs and distribute that negative, kind of like this. But I don't have a minus sign, so it's quite okay. All right, so you see how this is 3x squared, and there are no other x squareds. I have 3x squared. Then you see this negative 12x and a positive 1x. Let me just underline all the like terms. So negative 12 plus 1 plus 5. Negative 12x plus 1 plus 5. And if you need your calculator, negative 12 plus 1 plus 5. Yep, it's negative 6. Negative 6x. Those are canceled out. You have a negative 4 and a positive 4, which equals 0. So this is equivalent. So this is out, this is out, this is out. This is your answer, number 4, just by process of elimination. I am going to do this, and I'll show you exactly how it matches up, or how it doesn't match up. But we're going to press pause, and I'll come back with the answer quickly. Okay, so number 3 is your answer, and I just realized not equivalent. I just have to keep on underlining that. So 4 was equivalent, and 3 was the one that was not equivalent, and it's 3x squared minus 6x. And as soon as you get that negative 6x, it's supposed to be plus 6x. So the one that is not equivalent is number 3. You could have stopped there. But I did number 4, and I just proved that it was equivalent. So each one of these came out, 1, 2, and 4 came out to 3x squared plus 6x. And that's basically it. All right, and number 3 is your answer for that question. All right, David correctly factored the expression m squared minus 12m minus 64. Which one did he write? So this is basically just a straight factoring problem of a polynomial. Go ahead, press pause, and do it now. So remember, you do have to find 2 factors that multiply to 64 and that add or subtract to a 12, and so far I have not found that. Right, so remember, 64 divided by, let's see if 3 goes in, no it doesn't. 64 divided by 4, let's see if 4 goes in, no it doesn't. Yes it does. So 4 times 16. Now, can you make 12 out of that? So, but you have to multiply to a negative. So remember, one has to be positive, one has to be negative. So it does using these two. If one was positive and one was negative, it would multiply to a negative 64. Which one would have to be the positive? Which one would have to be the negative for it to add to a negative 12? The larger number would have to be the negative. So it would be a positive 4 and a negative 16. All right, so you could try it out like this: 4 times negative 16, negative 64, 4 minus 16, negative 12. So you would get this as your answer. Nice, easy problem. So this problem right here says which expression has been incorrectly paired with its factors. So just remember, try each one. Start with whatever one that you want to start with and see if you could kind of work it out. And we'll come back. Press pause now. So I'm thinking that 2 is the answer. It says which one is incorrectly paired with its factors. I kind of factored this and just realized, hey, this is x squared, x squared times negative 3, and then positive 3 times x squared. That would cancel out the middle terms. And then 3 times negative 3 would be negative 9. That works. This one I went to first because I saw the greatest common factor of 3 that was factored out. And this was pretty easy as far as the factoring out the binomials there because it was all positives. So 3 times 3 is 9, 3 plus 3 is 6. So that works out, and that's correctly paired. So I skipped number 3 on purpose, went to this, and I figured that 3 was the greatest common factor. I factored that out. Then I had x squared plus 9 inside the parentheses, and then I factored that, and I factored it where, all right, it has to be a positive 9, right? So it has to be a positive 9, and a positive 3 times a positive 3 equals 9. But the problem with this is, if you factor it this way, all right, the 3 comes out and you have x squared plus 9. Remember, this would have to be a negative 9 for this to be the difference of squares. And it's not. So it's not positive negative. It has to be positive positive, because positive times a positive equals a positive. So if you did distributive property here, x times x is x squared, right? And then x times 3 is 3x, and then x times 3 times x is another 3x. So you would have a middle term here. So I'm just going to go ahead and just make sure, because I want to make sure that this does not equal this. And all I have to do is look at negative 3 times negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Right? So if you factor out the 3 and get x squared minus 3x, and then another negative 3x, and then a positive 9. This is what you get. X squared minus 6x, and then a plus 9. And don't forget, the 3 is still out there. So we'd get 3x squared minus 18x, and then a plus of 27. So that's basically why this one is incorrectly paired with its factors. So 2 is your answer. And I didn't even do 3. I don't want to do 3. Not that it's extremely difficult, but I just don't want to do it. And I don't have to. because 2 is my answer. All right, so Janet was asked to factor y to the fourth minus 25y. W. I don't know why I'm saying y. W to the fourth minus 25w squared. Try that. It says which expression is correct, so it's looking for the correct one. So you could go right ahead and try to do this. Factoring it out. It says factor completely, so that means it's going to have probably 2 steps. Go ahead, look for the greatest common factor first, and then factor it beyond that. Press pause and try it now. Okay, so the first thing that you always do is look for that greatest common factor. This one does have a greatest common factor of w squared. All right, so w squared comes out of the parentheses, and inside w squared times w squared equals w to the fourth. W squared times a negative 25 is negative 25w squared. So that is right here the difference of squares. You do have to recognize that that is the difference of squares. All right, so that means 25 is your perfect square, and you have w and w minus 5 and plus 5, and this is basically what you get, and that means number 4 is your answer, and that is it. Hopefully you got that. What is the sum of x minus 3 squared and 2x times x plus 4? Go ahead and do this. By the way, x minus 3, whatever is in parentheses happens twice. All right, so when you're setting this up, before we press pause and try it, remember inside parentheses is the same thing twice being multiplied because it's saying squared. And it's the sum. So I'm going to put plus 2x and then do distributive property and then combine like terms. So see if you could go ahead, do the distributive property here, line up all those factors, and then do distributive property here, line up all those terms I meant, and go ahead, combine like terms and see which one is your answer. Press pause now. Okay, so I did the distributive property here. X times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And then you did 2x times x is 2x squared. And 2x times 4 is 8x. And I'm looking for like terms. I have an x squared here, and I have another x squared here. So I am going to put 3x squared because this is 1x squared plus 2x squared. So I'm going to cancel those out because I need to get them out of the way. Then I have negative 3x and a negative 3x and an 8x. So whenever I get confused, I go right to my calculator. Negative 3 minus 3 plus 8, and that is a 2x. Gone, gone, and gone. Then plus 9. So you're looking at your answer right here, number 2. 3x squared plus 2x plus 9. Hopefully you got that. The length, width, and height of a rectangular box are represented by 2x, 3x plus 1, and 5x minus 6, respectively. When the volume is expressed as a polynomial in standard form, what is the coefficient of the second term? Wow, coefficient of that second term. So go ahead, see if you could get the volume. When the volume is expressed as a polynomial in standard form, the coefficient of that second term. So go ahead, get the volume formula for a rectangular box and see if you can do this. We'll come right back with it and press pause now. Give it a try. So volume equals length times width times height, and you could basically do this any way that you want. I'm gonna just take these two binomials and go ahead and do this because multiplication is commutative. So I'm going to leave this 2x out right now, and I'm just going to go ahead and do 3x times 5x, and I get 15x squared. Let me move this over a little bit. X squared. And then 3x times negative 6 is negative 18x. And then 1 times 5x is 5x. And 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. I mean, you could put the the 2x inside the parentheses, it doesn't matter. You're going to distribute this 2x to get your answer. So 2x times 15x squared is 30x to the third. Two x times negative 18, 2x times negative 18, 2 times negative 18, negative 36. X squared. Sorry, my hand is... All right, and 2x times 5x is 10x. And 2x times a negative 6, you could have combined like terms here, is negative 12x. So there's no other x to the third, so we're going to bring down that 30x to the third. The x squareds, you're going to okay, so x squared, or so 2x times negative 18x is negative 36x, and then 2x times 5x is 10x squared. I forgot about that squared there. That's why I was hesitating before. So negative 36 plus 10x squared is negative 26x squared. All right. And I'm having a lot of trouble writing here, but that's negative. And so, and then also the 2x times that negative 6 is negative 12x. So it's asking you what is the coefficient. The coefficient is the number before the x. Negative 26, 3 is your answer. All right, and hopefully you got that. If m of x equals negative 2x plus 3, and p of x is x squared plus 6x plus 9, the product of m of x and p of x is. So put both of these in parentheses and do distributive property like you're used to doing. All right, so I'm going to set them up with you. Negative 2x plus 3, and then you have the x squared plus 6x plus 9. Go ahead, what I'm saying about distributive property, you're going to take just like as if you're going to take the 2x, negative 2x, distribute it, the negative 2x, distribute it, the negative 2x, distribute it. And then you take the 3 and distribute it, and then combine all like terms, put them in standard form, and one of these answers will be correct. Go ahead, try the problem, press pause now. So I distributed this negative 2x, the 3 terms in the second set of parentheses, and then I distributed the 3 also to the second set of parentheses. I got all of my terms right here, and then I have negative 2x to the third. I'm going to cancel that out because there's no other x to the thirds. Then I have negative 12x squared and a positive 12x squared, and I don't have any other x squareds. So that would be negative 9x squared, because negative 12 plus 3 is negative 9x squared. The negative 18 and the positive 18 cancel out, so that's 0x. You don't have to put that, and you put a plus 27. So your answer is 1. Take it step by step, nice and slow. All right, go on to the next problem. Sue's garden is in the shape of a rectangle. Dimensions are x plus 5 and 2x minus 4. Basically, what you're talking about is area in this case. What is area of a rectangle formula? If you don't know it, length times width. So what you're going to do is basically for this problem, and most of these rectangles and whatever volume and all that stuff, they want you to multiply. Go ahead, multiply it. One of these expressions represents the area. Press pause now. Okay, so I did distributive property. I had x times 2x is 2x squared, x times negative 4 is negative 4x, 5 times 2x is 10x, and then 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. All I have to do is combine like terms. You have 2x squared, and in the middle you have those two terms that are like terms. You have negative 4 plus 10, that is a plus 6x. And you just bring down that negative 20, and 4 is your answer. So this is the last problem on the review sheet, and it's asking you to do a couple of different things here. First, the product of half x minus 2 and 6x plus 4 is subtracted from the x squared plus 5x plus 2. So just remember, when something is subtracted from something else, the second thing goes first, and the product will be the second thing that is being subtracted from it. So before we do anything, go ahead and distribute, because we're talking about the product here, and I would just change the half to, you don't have to, but I'm going to put that as 0.5x just to make it easier for myself to input into my calculator if I need to use the calculator at any time. Remember, a shortcut, anything multiplied by half, any number multiplied by half is half the number. So like again, 0.5x times 6x would be 3x. It's just half. All right, so if you can't figure it out though, just put it into the calculator, use that. Go ahead, try this problem on your own. Press pause now. So what I did was I just multiplied here. I have 3x squared minus 10x minus 8, and then I see that this must be subtracted from this. So I put this first, this is first, and then this is being subtracted from it. So remember, first set of parentheses, it's important for subtraction problems to be in parentheses, but the first set, it really doesn't matter because you're just bringing down the terms, right? But the second one, right? So this negative being a subtraction problem is like doing distributive property, like I said before. And it changes all the signs inside that second set of parentheses because you're really distributing. A negative times a positive would be a negative. I'm not going to go through it. Negative times a negative is positive. So, I mean, like if you want to go through it that way, I know that negative 10x becomes a positive 10x. I know that negative 8 becomes a negative positive 8 because negative times a negative is positive. Once you have everything lined up, you are ready to combine the like terms. You have negative 2x squared is positive x squared minus 3x squared. I can cancel those out. I have 5x plus 10x is 15x. And I have a 2 plus 8, which is a plus 10. And I have number 2 as my answer. All right, hopefully that video helped you out with all of the topics. Remember, everything that this covered is basically here on the first sheet that I put unit 1 through unit 8 through, sorry, lesson 1 through lesson 5, all with polynomials, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and factoring polynomials completely, recognizing the difference of squares, all very important. Hopefully you found this review sheet video helpful, and we will see you next time.